The smell of Mom's famous lasagna usually made me smile, but tonight it turned my stomach as I sat at the mahogany dining table that had hosted 28 years of family dinners. My parents had insisted on this special celebration for my sister Emma's wedding tomorrow, though something in Dad's tone when he called felt off. "Maya, sweetheart, we have wonderful news," Mom began, her voice artificially bright as she served generous portions. "We've found the perfect solution to Emma's wedding budget shortfall." Emma beamed from across the table, her engagement ring catching the chandelier light. At 26, she'd always been the golden child, cheerleader captain, sorority president, now a struggling Instagram influencer with delusions of grandeur and a fiancé whose family expected a $70,000 celebration. The venue coordinator called yesterday. Emma gushed. "They need the final payment tomorrow morning or they'll cancel everything. Can you imagine? All my friends have already taken time off work, bought dresses, booked flights." I nodded politely, cutting my lasagna into precise squares. As a senior software architect at Harrison Tech, I'd learned to stay calm under pressure. "That sounds stressful. Have you considered scaling back?" Dad cleared his throat, that familiar sound that preceded his pronouncements. "Actually, we've handled it. Jim Morrison, you remember Emma's boyfriend Brad's father, he's been helping us navigate the real estate market." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "Real estate market? Your little house has appreciated so much since you bought it," Mom continued enthusiastically. "Jim says the market's perfect for selling. We already have a buyer lined up, sight unseen. These developers are throwing money around for properties in your neighborhood." The lasagna felt like concrete in my throat. "Pie house. Well, technically it's still under our names from when we co-signed your mortgage," Dad said matter-of-factly, pulling out a manila folder. "Jim explained that since you were only 22 when you bought it and needed our credit support, we retained certain legal rights. Very standard arrangement, apparently." Emma leaned forward excitedly. "The best part is the timing. The buyers want to close immediately, tomorrow afternoon, right after my ceremony. It's like fate. Everything's working out perfectly." I set down my fork, my software engineer's mind automatically debugging the situation. When I'd bought the house 6 years ago, I'd needed their co-signature due to my age and limited credit history. But I'd paid every cent myself, including a massive down payment from my first startup acquisition. More importantly, I'd had my lawyer structure the ownership to transfer fully to my name once I'd made 12 consecutive payments, which happened 5 years ago. "Where did you get this legal advice?" I asked quietly. "Jim's been so helpful," Dad said. "He knows all about property law. Did you know he's been selling real estate for 15 years? Brad's father is quite accomplished." I almost laughed. Jim Morrison sold vacation timeshares and low-end condos in the worst part of town. I'd looked him up after meeting him at Emma's engagement party. $43,000 in back taxes, 2 previous business failures, and a real estate license that had been suspended twice for ethics violations. "He's already drafted the paperwork," Mom added, sliding documents across the table. "We just need your signature as a formality. The buyers are offering $420,000. After the realtor commission and closing costs, Emma's wedding will be completely covered with money left over." $420,000. My house was worth at least $650,000. I'd had it appraised 8 months ago when refinancing. Either they were being scammed or they were planning to pocket the difference. "This is very sudden," I said, scanning the documents. The paperwork looked official enough to fool most people, but I noticed immediately that it listed only my parents as owners, with no mention of the title transfer that had occurred years ago. "The buyers need to close tomorrow," Emma pressed. "Their financing expires and Jim says we'll never get another offer this good. Plus, Maya, you're always saying how you want to help family. This is your chance to make my dream wedding happen." I pulled out my phone and opened my camera app, photographing each document while they watched proudly. "Just want to save copies for my records," I explained. "So responsible," Dad nodded approvingly. "This is why we know you'll understand how important this is. Emma's happiness means everything to us." I looked around the table at their expectant faces. Mom practically vibrating with excitement, Dad confident in his authority, Emma glowing with anticipation of her perfect day funded by my life's work. "I need to make a quick phone call," I said, standing up. "Give me just a moment to process this generous offer." I stepped into the hallway, my heart pounding as I scrolled through my contacts. 6 years of family dinners where they dismissed my career achievements flashed through my mind. Maya's just doing computer stuff, they'd say when relatives asked. Nothing as important as Emma's influencer work. She's building a real personal brand. Dr. Patricia Reeves, my property lawyer, answered on the second ring. Maya? Everything all right? I need an emergency consultation, I whispered, moving toward the guest bathroom. My parents are trying to sell my house without my consent, claiming they still own it. The Morrison property? We transferred full ownership to you in 2020. I have all the documentation. What exactly is happening? I quickly explained the dinner conversation while photographing the fraudulent documents. They're planning to close tomorrow. They have a buyer lined up and everything. This is attempted real estate fraud, Patricia said grimly. Forward me those photos immediately. I'm calling the real estate board tonight. Who's the agent? Jim Morrison. Emma's future father-in-law. Patricia's sharp intake of breath was audible. Jim Morrison? Maya, his license was just reinstated last month after a 2-year suspension for forging ownership documents. This is his 3rd violation. I'll have his license pulled permanently and criminal charges filed within the hour. What about my parents? They're accessories to fraud whether they realize it or not. Forward everything to my secure email right now. I'm documenting this entire chain of events. I sent the photos and returned to the dining room, where my family was discussing flower arrangements and seating charts. Mom had opened a bottle of champagne. Everything sorted? Dad asked jovially. Just getting some professional advice, I said, sitting back down. Emma raised her glass. To family helping family. Maya, you have no idea how much this means to me. Brad's family has been so judgmental about our budget. Now I can show them we're just as sophisticated as they are. For 6 years I'd listened to variations of this theme. When I'd bought the house at 22, they'd called it Maya's little starter home. When I'd been promoted to senior architect, they'd said, "That's nice, dear, but when will you find time for a real relationship?" When I'd started my consulting firm last year, they'd worried I was getting too big for my britches. Meanwhile, Emma's failed ventures were celebrated as following her dreams. The boutique that closed after 3 months. Finding her path. The lifestyle blog with 47 followers. Building her platform. The engagement to Brad, whose main qualification was looking good in Instagram photos. True love. I'm curious about the buyers, I said casually. Did Jim mention who they are? Some development company, Mom said vaguely. They want to tear down your little house and build condominiums. Honestly, Maya, you should be relieved. That neighborhood's been going downhill anyway. I almost choked on my champagne. My neighborhood had just been featured in Architectural Digest as one of the city's most desirable areas. Property values had increased 40% in 2 years. And Jim's commission? I pressed. Only 6%, Dad said proudly. Much lower than the usual rate. He's practically doing this as a favor to family. 6% of a $420,000 sale was over $25,000. For a house worth $650, that meant Jim and his buyers stood to make nearly $250,000 in profit. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Real estate board contacted. Jim Morrison's license suspended pending investigation. Criminal referral filed. Need you to come in first thing Monday with all original documents. Maya, you're being awfully quiet, Emma observed. Aren't you excited? Your investment is finally paying off. My investment? Well, Mom and Dad's investment technically, she corrected. But you've been house sitting for them all these years. That has to count for something. House sitting. 6 years of mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and renovations had been reduced to house sitting. Speaking of which, Dad continued, you'll need to be out by Monday morning. The new owners want to start demolition immediately. I'm sure you can find a nice apartment. Maybe something closer to work. Emma clapped her hands together. This is so perfect. Maya can get a cute little place and my wedding will be absolutely magical. Everyone wins. I looked at their faces, so confident, so pleased with their clever solution. They genuinely convinced themselves this was legal, fair, and beneficial to everyone involved. My phone rang. Patricia's name appeared on the screen. I should take this, I said, standing up again. Maya, Emma called after me. The realtor should be here any minute with the final contracts. Don't take too long. I answered Patricia's call in the kitchen, watching through the doorway as my family continued their celebration. Maya, this situation is worse than I thought, Patricia said without preamble. I've been reviewing Jim Morrison's recent transactions. He's been running this exact scam for months, targeting young property owners whose parents co-signed original mortgages. He convinces the parents they still own the properties, forges documentation, then flips the houses to shell companies he controls. How many victims? At least 6 in the past year. The real estate board is furious. They're launching a full investigation and the district attorney's office is getting involved. This is organized real estate fraud. The doorbell rang. Through the hallway I could see Dad jumping up excitedly. That must be Jim with the contracts, I heard him tell Mom. Why? The realtor's here. Patricia, I whispered urgently, he's here now with fraudulent closing documents. Perfect timing. I've been on a conference call with the real estate board president, Sarah Chin, and Detective Williams from the fraud unit. They're 10 minutes away. Whatever you do, don't let him leave. I heard Dad opening the front door. Jim. Come in, come in. Maya's just finishing up a phone call, then we can make this official. I walked back to the dining room, phone still pressed to my ear, and watched Jim Morrison stride in with a leather briefcase and that practiced realtor smile. He was exactly as I remembered. 2 bright teeth, expensive suit that didn't quite fit, and the aggressive confidence of someone who'd built a career on exploiting people's trust. Dr. Reeves, I said loudly into the phone, could you repeat that last part about property fraud investigations? Jim's smile faltered slightly, but he continued setting up documents on the table. The Morrison family is so excited, he announced to the room. We've got a clean sale, quick closing, and everyone walks away happy. Maya, just need your signature on a few formalities. Jim, I said pleasantly, hanging up my phone, I'm curious about your buyers. Could you provide their business registration numbers? His pause lasted just a beat too long. That's proprietary information, but I can assure you they're completely legitimate. And you're certain my parents actually own this property? Absolutely. I've verified everything. Your parents co-signed the original mortgage, which gives them full ownership rights. Emma beamed at me. See? Jim knows exactly what he's doing. This is his area of expertise. Actually, I said, pulling out my own phone and opening my document folder, I have the title transfer paperwork from 2020 showing that ownership was legally transferred to me alone once I'd made 12 consecutive payments. The room went quiet. Jim's confident expression cracked. That must be some kind of clerical error, he stammered. Dr. Patricia Reeves, my property lawyer, disagrees. She's the one who handled the transfer. She also mentioned you've had your license suspended twice for similar issues. Dad's face was turning red. Maya, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Jim Morrison has been running a real estate fraud scheme, and you've become unwitting accomplices. The doorbell rang again. This time it was sharp and authoritative. That, I said, standing up as blue lights flashed through the dining room windows, would be the real estate board president and the police fraud unit. Jim Morrison tried to slip out the back door but found Detective Williams waiting in the garden. His briefcase contained fraudulent documents for 11 other properties, a multi-million-dollar operation that ended with handcuffs in my parents' foyer. The real estate board president, Sarah Chin, explained the charges to my stunned family while crime scene technicians photographed the forged documents. Jim's license was permanently revoked, and he faced up to 15 years for organized fraud. Emma's wedding was postponed indefinitely. Brad's family, horrified by the scandal, suggested a cooling-off period. The venue coordinator, reading about the arrests in Monday's paper, refused to reschedule. My parents faced prosecution as accessories, though Patricia negotiated probation in exchange for their testimony against Jim's wider network. Dad lost his position at the bank once his involvement became public. Mom's bridge club friends suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Emma moved back in with our parents, her influencer dreams crashing when sponsors fled from the negative publicity. Her follower count dropped to 14. The most satisfying part came Tuesday morning when I received a call from Harrison Tech CEO. The story had made national news as an example of real estate fraud targeting successful young professionals. "Maya," he said, "the board has decided to fast-track your promotion to VP of Development. We want leaders who handle crisis with your level of composure and intelligence." I accepted the position from my kitchen. My kitchen in my house with the mortgage I'd paid and the title that bore only my name. Sometimes the most important property you can own is simply knowing your worth.